I'm Josephine, 31 years old, and I'm driving through heavy rain right now, my hands still shaking on the steering wheel. 3 hours ago, I was at my best friend Claire's baby shower, watching her glow with happiness as she opened gifts for her miracle baby. Then my husband Daniel grabbed my arm, his face drained of all colour as he stared at the ultrasound photos displayed on the screen. "We have to go, now," he whispered urgently, and I knew something was terribly wrong. "Before I tell you what my husband discovered, let me know where you're watching from. If you've ever had to expose a painful truth to save someone you love, please subscribe. Here's how one photo changed everything. Claire and I met 15 years ago during freshman orientation at Boston University. While everyone else was trying to act cool and independent, Claire bounced up to me with a huge smile and asked if I wanted to be her roommate because she liked my purple backpack. That kind of unfiltered authenticity made us instant friends, and we've been inseparable ever since. Throughout college, Claire talked constantly about her future family. While I was focused on career goals and travel plans, she had already named her future children and designed her dream nursery. She dated with purpose, looking for the one in every relationship, getting her heart broken repeatedly when college boys weren't ready for her level of commitment. I stood by her through every heartbreak. The musician who cheated with 3 different girls, the pre-med student who ghosted her after 2 years, the law student who told her she was too much and needed to lower her expectations. Each time, Claire would cry on my shoulder, then dust herself off and declare that her perfect person was still out there. 5 years ago, at a charity gala I dragged her to for my husband Daniel's hospital, Claire met Marcus Wellington. He was everything she'd dreamed of on paper. 35 years old, established in commercial real estate, tall with distinguished grey temples that made him look like he'd stepped out of a romance novel. He pursued Claire with the kind of old-fashioned courtship she'd always wanted. Flowers delivered to her office every Friday, handwritten notes, reservations at restaurants where you needed connections just to get on the waiting list. "This is it, Joe," she told me 6 months into dating him. "He's the one. I can feel it in my bones." I wanted to be happy for her, but something about Marcus set off alarm bells I couldn't quite identify. He was charming, certainly, but his charm felt practiced, like he was playing a role. When he looked at Claire, I saw calculation more than love. But Claire was radiant with happiness, so I pushed my doubts aside. They married 2 years later in a wedding that cost more than most people's houses. Claire looked like a princess in her designer gown, and Marcus played the devoted groom perfectly. As her maid of honour, I stood beside her, trying to ignore the way Marcus's mother Eleanor looked at Claire with barely concealed disdain, or how his sister Catherine seemed nervous throughout the ceremony. Daniel and I had been married for 2 years by then. He'd noticed my concerns about Marcus and tried to befriend him for my sake, but they never clicked. Marcus found Daniel boring because he just read X-rays all day, and Daniel found Marcus shallow and materialistic. Still, they maintained cordial relations for Claire and me. The first 3 years of Claire and Marcus's marriage seemed perfect from the outside. They bought a colonial house in Westchester, took European vacations, and hosted dinner parties that could have been featured in lifestyle magazines. But I noticed small things. The way Marcus would subtly criticize Claire's outfit choices, how he'd interrupt her stories to tell his own version, the casual mentions of his ex-girlfriends who were models or CEOs. Then came the fertility struggles. Claire had assumed pregnancy would happen immediately, the way everything else in her life plan had eventually fallen into place. But month after month passed with negative tests. After a year, they started fertility treatments. Marcus was supposedly supportive, but he started working longer hours, taking more business trips, missing appointments. The first IVF cycle failed. Claire was devastated. Marcus was in Tokyo on business and couldn't come home early. The second cycle also failed. This time, Marcus was there, but he spent the day she got the news on his phone dealing with a crisis at work. I held Claire while she sobbed in my kitchen, wondering if her dream of motherhood would ever come true. "Maybe it's not meant to be," Marcus had said coldly after the second failure. "We could always just enjoy our freedom. Kids are expensive anyway." Claire was shattered. The man who'd promised her everything suddenly seemed indifferent to her deepest desire. She threw herself into research about fertility, tried every diet, every supplement, every old wives' tale. Marcus grew more distant, more critical. He started making comments about her weight gain from the hormones, her mood swings, her obsession with having a baby. Then, 6 months ago, a miracle. Claire called me screaming with joy. She was pregnant, naturally, no intervention. After 3 years of trying, it had just happened. "I didn't even believe the test," she sobbed happily into the phone. "I took 5 more just to be sure. Joe, I'm finally going to be a mum." Daniel was with me when I took the call, and while I squealed with excitement, I noticed his thoughtful expression. When I hung up, he said carefully, "That's wonderful for Claire. Marcus must be thrilled." Something in his tone made me pause. "Why do you say it like that?" "No reason," he said, but I knew my husband well enough to recognize when he was holding something back. Marcus's reaction to the pregnancy was interesting. After months of distance and coldness, he suddenly became the perfect expectant father. He attended every doctor's appointment, bought Claire expensive maternity clothes, posted ultrasound photos on social media with captions about being blessed. It was like a switch had flipped. Claire bloomed with happiness. All the pain of the fertility struggles seemed to evaporate. She documented every moment of her pregnancy on Instagram, created a Pinterest board for the nursery, and started a pregnancy journal. Marcus played along perfectly, appearing in photos with his hand on her belly, surprising her with baby items talking about being a dad. But Daniel remained oddly quiet whenever Claire's pregnancy came up. He'd change the subject or find reasons to leave the room. When I finally confronted him about it, he just said, "I hope everything works out for them." The way he said it made my skin crawl, but I was too caught up in planning the perfect baby shower to push further. As Claire's best friend and chosen aunt to her baby, I took planning her shower as seriously as if I were organising a state dinner. This was Claire's rainbow, after the storm, her celebration after years of heartache. It had to be perfect. I booked the garden room at the Botanical Gardens 3 months in advance. The space was gorgeous with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking rose gardens and a lily pond. I chose a Little Prince theme because Claire had loved that book since childhood, and she was convinced she was having a boy, even though she claimed not to know the gender officially. The guest list grew to 50 people carefully curated from Claire's work, friends, Marcus's family, mutual friends, and relatives. I spent weeks on Pinterest creating decoration ideas, designing games that weren't cheesy, and coordinating a menu that was sophisticated but still comforting. This shower would be talked about for years, I was determined. 2 weeks before the event, Claire sent me her latest ultrasound photos to incorporate into the decorations. She wanted them displayed on a slideshow during the party, a visual journey of her miracle baby's development. I immediately forwarded them to Daniel to get his opinion on which ones were clearest for projection. He looked at them over breakfast, his professional eye scanning the images. Then he paused, zoomed in on one particular scan, and frowned. "What's wrong?" I asked, worried something was wrong with the baby. "Nothing's wrong," he said slowly. "It's just something looks familiar about this scan. The measurements, the positioning. Familiar how?" He shrugged, setting down his phone. "Probably nothing. I look at hundreds of these a week." They start to blur together. I didn't think anything more of it. Daniel was always seeing patterns in his work, occupational hazard of being a radiologist. I had centerpieces to finalize and games to organize. The week before the shower, Marcus did something that surprised everyone. He cancelled a major business trip to Japan to attend the party. Claire was overjoyed, calling me in tears. He chose me, Joe. He actually chose me over work. I wanted to share her happiness, but something felt off. Marcus never cancelled business trips. Even for their anniversary last year, he'd attended via Zoom from Singapore. Why was this baby shower suddenly so important? On Friday, the day before the shower, I ran into Marcus at Tiffany's while picking up a gift I'd ordered for Claire. He was at the jewellery counter purchasing an elaborate diamond bracelet that must have cost at least $20,000. Push gift, he explained when he saw me, though I hadn't asked. Claire deserves something special after everything she's been through. His words were right, but his delivery was strange. He kept checking his phone, his leg bouncing with nervous energy. When the sales associate asked if he wanted it gift-wrapped, he snapped at her, then apologised profusely. It was unlike the smooth, controlled Marcus I knew. "Is everything okay?" I asked as we walked out together. "Perfect," he said, that practice smile sliding into place. "Tomorrow's going to be a day Claire never forgets." The way he said it sent chills down my spine, but I attributed it to my long-standing unease about him. Claire was happy, that's what mattered. Saturday morning, the day of the shower, I arrived at the venue early to supervise setup. The florist had outdone herself with arrangements of white roses and baby's breath. The caterers were setting up stations for the elaborate brunch I'd planned. Gold star garlands hung from the ceiling and a throne-like chair decorated with tulle and ribbons awaited Claire at the centre of the room. My phone rang at 11 just as I was adjusting the gift table. It was Claire and she was crying. "What's wrong? Please tell me you're not sick." "Marcus and I had a fight," she sobbed. "A stupid fight about the baby's name." "What kind of fight?" "He's insisting we name the baby Alexander if it's a boy, after his grandfather. But Joe, I've never even heard him mention his grandfather before, and when I suggested we could use it as a middle name, he got actually angry, like raised his voice angry. He never raises his voice. "Honey, you're both stressed. It's a big day. These things happen." But why is he so obsessed with this name suddenly, and why today of all days? It's like he's a different person these past few days. So on edge. I soothed her as best I could, promising that everything would be perfect at the shower. Marcus was probably just nervous about becoming a father, I suggested, even though I didn't believe it myself. Something was building, I could feel it like pressure before a storm. By noon, guests were arriving, and I was too busy playing hostess to worry about Marcus's odd behaviour. Claire arrived at 12:30, glowing in a pink maternity dress that showed off her bump perfectly. Her eyes were slightly puffy from crying, but her makeup artist had worked miracles. Marcus arrived separately with his mother Eleanor and sister Catherine. Eleanor dressed in severe black, despite the celebratory occasion, air-kissed Claire's cheek with all the warmth of an ice cube. Catherine hugged Claire, but wouldn't meet her eyes, clutching a wrapped box like a life preserver. "Where's the proud papa?" Tom, one of Marcus's business partners, asked jovially. Marcus materialised beside Claire, placing a possessive hand on her back. "Right here. Wouldn't miss this for the world." But he wasn't looking at Claire when he said it. He was scanning the room like a predator surveying territory. When his eyes met mine, something dark flickered in them before he smiled that practiced smile. Daniel arrived fashionably late, still in his scrubs from an emergency surgery that morning. He kissed my cheek, then froze when he saw the ultrasound slideshow I'd set up on the large screen at the front of the room. "Joe," he said quietly, "we need to talk about those images." "Later," I whispered back. "Claire's about to open gifts." But Daniel didn't move to join the other guests gathering around Claire's throne. Instead, he stood transfixed by the screen, his face growing paler with each image that cycled through. The baby shower was in full swing by 2 o'clock. Claire sat in her decorated chair, surrounded by mountains of pastel-wrapped gifts, her face glowing with the kind of joy I hadn't seen in years. The guests formed a semicircle around her phones, out to capture every moment of her opening presents. "Oh my goodness, look at these tiny socks," Claire squealed, holding up a set of hand-knitted booties from her colleague Sandra. They're so small. Can you believe a human being's feet will actually fit in these? Everyone laughed and cooed appropriately, but I kept glancing at Daniel. He hadn't moved from his position by the ultrasound display, his medical training apparent in the way he studied each image with clinical intensity. His frown deepened with every cycle of the slideshow. "This is from Marcus's mother and me," Catherine announced, approaching with a velvet jewellery box that looked distinctly vintage. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed it in Claire's lap. Claire opened it carefully, revealing an ornate silver rattle with intricate engravings. It was obviously an antique, the kind of family heirloom passed down through generations. "It's beautiful," Claire breathed, genuinely touched. "Thank you so much, Eleanor." Eleanor's expression remained stone cold. It belonged to Marcus's great-grandmother. She gave it to her son Alexander when he was born. "Alexander," Claire repeated, her smile faltering slightly. "Marcus mentioned that name this morning." "Family tradition," Eleanor said crisply. "All firstborn Wellington sons carry the name Alexander. Marcus seems to have forgotten to mention that during your courtship." The room went quiet. Catherine shifted uncomfortably, shooting her mother a warning look. "Well," Claire said, trying to recover her cheerful mood, "we don't even know if it's a boy yet. The doctor said the baby was being shy during the gender scan." Catherine laughed nervously. "Right, of course. Though Marcus seemed pretty certain when he called yesterday. He said it's definitely a boy." "He did?" Claire looked confused. "But how would he know? We decided to wait until birth to find out for sure." Marcus appeared suddenly at Claire's side, his hand tightening on her shoulder. "I was just guessing, honey. Hopeful thinking. Shall we continue with the gifts?" The moment passed, but a seed of unease had been planted. I watched Claire's face as she continued opening presents, saw the slight furrow between her brows, the way she kept glancing at Marcus with questions in her eyes. At 3:30, after Claire had opened the last gift, a designer diaper bag from her sister who lived in California, I announced it was time for games. But before I could start explaining the first activity, Daniel was at my side, his grip on my arm urgent. "Joe, we need to talk, now." "Daniel, I'm in the middle of hosting. This can't wait." His voice was deadly serious. "It's about the ultrasound." I looked at Claire, laughing at something her cousin was saying, then back at my husband's grave face. 5 minutes, I told the room. "Everyone help yourselves to dessert, while I handle a small catering issue." Daniel practically dragged me out to the hallway. The moment we were alone, words tumbled out of him. "That ultrasound is wrong. Not medically wrong, but the dates are wrong." "What do you mean?" "Claire told everyone she's 20 weeks pregnant, right? Due in April." "Yes, it's on the invitations. April 15th. Daniel shook his head emphatically. "That baby in those scans is at least 28 weeks developed. The skull circumference, the femur length, the abdominal measurements, everything indicates a much more advanced pregnancy." My mind struggled to process this. Maybe the dating scan was wrong. No, Joe, if Claire is as far along as those ultrasounds show, she got pregnant in June, not August, like she claims. And remember Marcus's Tokyo trip in June. He was gone for 3 weeks. The conception window doesn't match with him being in the country. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "You're saying..." "I'm saying either Claire has been lying about how far along she is or she doesn't know herself. But Marcus has to know. There's no way he's been to all these appointments and doesn't know the real due date." "But why would he..." "Oh my God." The realization hit me like cold water. He's planning something. That's why he cancelled his trip. That's why he's acting so strange. Daniel nodded grimly. "We need to find out what before." A crash from inside the party room cut him off. We rushed back in to find Catherine standing over a shattered champagne glass, her face white as paper, staring at Marcus, who was whispering furiously in her ear. "I'm so sorry," Catherine stammered to the room. "I'm just clumsy." But I saw the way her hands shook, the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. Whatever Marcus had just told her had terrified her. Claire started to stand to help, but Daniel moved quickly. "Don't get up, Claire. In your condition, you shouldn't be near broken glass. Let me check that you're okay. First, I noticed you wincing earlier." It was smoothly done. Daniel approached Claire with his doctor's demeanour, gently placing a hand on her belly, as if checking the baby's position. I saw the exact moment his suspicions were confirmed. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "The baby's dropped significantly," he said, loud enough for only Claire and me to hear. "Have you been having any contractions? Any pressure?" "Some Braxton Hicks," Claire admitted. "But my doctor said that's normal at 20 weeks. Daniel's eyes met mine over Claire's head. We both knew Braxton Hicks at 20 weeks versus 32 weeks were very different things. This baby was coming sooner than Claire realised. I made a quick decision. "Catherine, could you help me with something in the kitchen?" She practically ran to follow me, clearly desperate to escape Marcus's presence. Once we were alone among the catering supplies, I turned to face her. "You need to tell me what's going on, right now." "I can't. Marcus will destroy me. Catherine, I've known you for 5 years. You're not a cruel person. Whatever secret you're keeping is eating you alive. Claire is my best friend. If she's in danger, I need to know." Catherine's composure finally cracked. Tears streamed down her face as words poured out. "Marcus had a vasectomy 2 years ago, after the second failed IVF. He never told Claire." The room spun. I gripped the counter to steady myself. "What?" "He said he was done trying, that it was too expensive, too emotionally draining, but he knew Claire would leave him if she knew, so he just let her think they were still trying naturally. Let her blame herself for not getting pregnant." That's monstrous." "It gets worse." Catherine was sobbing now. "When Claire announced she was pregnant, Marcus knew immediately it wasn't his. But instead of confronting her, he started planning. He hired a private investigator. He knows who the father is." "Who?" But even as I asked, pieces were falling into place. Claire's work conference in June, the one she'd gone to alone because Marcus was in Tokyo. "James Morrison," Catherine whispered. The name hit me like a physical blow. James Morrison, married to my sister Meredith, my brother-in-law. "He has photos," Catherine continued, "from the hotel. He's been documenting everything, playing the perfect husband, gathering evidence. He plans to destroy her at the birth, in front of everyone. Prove the baby isn't his divorce. Her with cause take everything. He's already moved most of their assets into protected accounts." "And you've known this whole time." "I found out last week. I tried to convince him to just divorce her quietly, but he wants her humiliated, says she humiliated him by cheating. He doesn't see the irony that he'd been lying about the vasectomy for 2 years. I stood there, mind-racing, fury building. My best friend was about to have her world destroyed in the cruelest way possible, and the father of her baby was my sister's husband. Everything was about to implode. "Why are you telling me now?" Catherine wiped her eyes. "Because I watched Claire open that rattle so happy, so innocent, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't be part of this cruelty. She doesn't deserve this no matter what she did." I pulled out my phone. "I need you to tell me everything, every detail of Marcus's plan, and I need you to be willing to repeat it in front of Claire. He'll ruin me. He knows things about my past, my struggles with addiction in college. He'll tell everyone." "Catherine, he's going to ruin an innocent baby's life to satisfy his ego. Are you really more worried about your own reputation than that?" She took a shuddering breath, then nodded. "You're right. I'll do it. I'll tell Claire everything." But first, I had to deal with Marcus. And I had to figure out how to tell my sister that her husband was the father of Claire's baby. The next hour would either save or destroy multiple families. But one thing was certain, Marcus Wellington wasn't going to get away with his sick plan. I found Marcus in the parking lot, leaning against his Mercedes, smoking a cigarette, something I'd never seen him do before. His careful mask had slipped, revealing the cold calculation beneath. "Josephine," he said, not even looking up. "Catherine broke, didn't she? I could tell by the way you hustled her out of there." "You're sick," I said, my voice shaking with rage. "You had a vasectomy and didn't tell your wife. You let her suffer for 2 years thinking she was the problem." He laughed, a bitter sound. "Suffer? She was obsessed. Every conversation was about ovulation and fertility treatments and baby names. I gave her everything else. The house, the cars, the lifestyle. But it was never enough. You took away her choice. You lied to her every single day. And she lied to me when she spread her legs for another man." His voice turned vicious. "Don't act like she's innocent here. You drove her to it. You emotionally abandoned her, made her feel worthless, then act surprised when she made a mistake." "A mistake," Marcus flicked his cigarette away. "She planned that conference specifically when I'd be away. She targeted James because she knew he and Meredith were having problems. Your perfect best friend is a calculating homewrecker." That stopped me cold. "How do you know she planned it?" He pulled out his phone, showing me screenshots of Claire's emails from May. She had indeed signed up for the conference after Marcus's Tokyo trip was confirmed. She'd even emailed James professionally about a project suggesting they meet at the conference to discuss it. "She knew exactly what she was doing," Marcus continued. "Just like I know exactly what I'm doing. In about 8 weeks, when she goes into labour, thinking she has 2 more months, I'll be right there with a DNA test. The hospital, her family, everyone will know what she is. What about the baby? That innocent child. Not my problem. James can deal with his bastard." The word made me see red. I stepped forward, my hand itching to slap him, but Daniel appeared, placing himself between us. "That's enough, Marcus," Daniel said calmly. "You're done here." "Oh, the righteous doctor appears. Did you figure out the ultrasound discrepancy? Took you long enough." "Some radiologist you are." Daniel pulled out his phone. "Actually, I figured it out an hour ago, and I've been recording this entire conversation." Marcus's face went pale. "That's illegal. You can't record without consent." "This is a one-party consent state," I said, remembering my law classes from college. "And you just confessed to fraud, emotional abuse, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Not great for that business reputation you care so much about." "You wouldn't dare. It would destroy Claire too." "No," Daniel said firmly. "You were going to destroy Claire. We're going to save her." We walked back into the venue together, leaving Marcus standing by his car. Inside, the party had continued, but there was an undercurrent of tension. Claire was surrounded by friends, but she kept looking around, clearly wondering where I'd gone. I made a decision that would change everything. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" I said, taking the microphone. "There's something important that needs to be addressed." Claire looked at me with confusion. "Joe, what's going on?" "Claire, honey, I need you to sit down and listen. This is going to be hard, but you need to know the truth." Marcus burst through the doors. "Don't you dare!" "Or what?" I challenged. "You'll reveal your plan to humiliate her during childbirth too late." The room went silent. Eleanor stood up slowly. "Marcus, what is she talking about?" I handed my phone to Daniel, who connected it to the sound system. Marcus's recorded confession filled the room, his voice cold and calculating, talking about the vasectomy, the planned humiliation, calling the baby a bastard. Claire's face went white, then red, then white again. You had a vasectomy 2 years ago," Catherine confirmed, stepping forward. "After your second IVF failed. He never told you." 2 years, Claire's voice broke. 2 years of me taking hormones, checking ovulation, praying every month. 2 years of you comforting me when my period came, saying next month would be different. "Claire," Marcus started. "Don't!" Her voice turned to steel. "Don't say another word." Then she turned to me, tears streaming. "You said there's more. About the baby. Tell me everything." This was the hardest part. "The ultrasounds show you're about 32 weeks pregnant, not 20. The baby's due much sooner than you think, which means— June, Claire whispered. The conference. Oh, God. James, who had been sitting quietly in the corner with Meredith, stood up abruptly. His face was ashen. Meredith looked between him and Claire, understanding dawning in her eyes. No, Meredith said, her voice deadly quiet. Tell me you didn't. James couldn't meet her eyes. Meredith, I'm so sorry. It was one night. We were both lonely and drunk and— The slap Meredith delivered echoed through the room. At least have the decency not to make excuses. Claire was sobbing now, her hands on her belly. I didn't know about the dates. My doctor said the baby was measuring big. I thought it was Marcus's. I thought we'd finally succeeded. But you knew you'd slept with James, Marcus accused. Once, Claire screamed. Once when I was desperately lonely because my husband hadn't touched me in 6 months. You made me feel like a failure as a woman, and James was kind to me for one night. I'm not proud of it, but at least I wasn't deliberately cruel like you. Eleanor moved then, crossing to Claire's side. In all the years I'd known her, I'd never seen her show emotion. But now tears ran down her face. I told you to tell her about the vasectomy, she said to Marcus. I begged you. I said it was cruel, but you insisted you knew best. Mother, no, I'm done protecting you, done enabling your narcissism. She turned to Claire. I'm sorry. I should have told you myself. I was a coward. The room erupted into chaos. Guests were recording on phones, some leaving quietly, others staying for the drama. But in the centre of it all, Claire sat, broken her fairy tale turned nightmare. Everyone out, I commanded. Now, this is a private family matter. People filed out slowly, murmuring among themselves. Soon only the core group remained. Claire, Marcus, Eleanor, Catherine, James, Meredith, Daniel and me. Claire, I said gently, we need to get you to the hospital. The stress could trigger labour. As if on cue, Claire gasped, clutching her belly. Something's wrong. I'm having contractions, real ones. Daniel immediately went into doctor mode. How far apart? I don't know, 5 minutes they started during the recording. We need to go now, Daniel said urgently. This baby might be coming today. Marcus stepped forward. I'm coming with you. No, Claire said firmly. You've lost that right. Joe, please, you and Daniel. I need people I can trust. As we helped Claire to the car, she looked back at the destroyed party, the scattered decorations, the abandoned gifts. This was supposed to be my perfect day, she whispered. I know, honey. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry. You saved me. If you hadn't exposed him, I would have been ambushed at the hospital at my most vulnerable moment. You saved me from that. But as we drove to the hospital, Claire clutching my hand through contractions, I wondered if I'd really saved her or just changed the location of her heartbreak. Either way, there was no going back now. The truth was out, and we all had to live with the consequences. The hospital was chaos and calm simultaneously. Daniel had called ahead, ensuring the obstetrics team was ready for Claire's arrival. As we rushed through the emergency entrance, Claire gripping my hand through another contraction, the reality of the situation hit me. My best friend was about to give birth to my brother-in-law's baby after learning her husband had been deceiving her for years. The delivery room was a sanctuary from the madness we'd left behind. Claire's doctor, Patricia Hoffman, took control immediately, examining Claire with practiced efficiency. You're already 7 centimetres dilated, Dr. Hoffman announced, looking puzzled. Claire, your chart says you're 20 weeks, but this baby is full term. There must be a mistake with the dates. There's no mistake with the dates, Claire said through gritted teeth. Just with everything else in my life. Daniel quietly explained the situation to Dr. Hoffman while I helped Claire through her breathing exercises. The contractions were coming faster now, each one making Claire cry out despite her efforts to stay calm. I can't do this, she sobbed between contractions. Not alone, not like this. You're not alone, I assured her. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. An hour into labour, my phone exploded with messages. The baby shower disaster had already made its way through social media. Someone had live-streamed the revelation, and it was going viral in our community. I silenced my phone, focusing on Claire. Then the door burst open. James stood there, dishevelled and desperate. "I need to talk to Claire." "Get out," Claire screamed. "You don't get to be here. It's my baby too," James said, stepping forward. "I have rights." Daniel physically blocked him. "Not right now, you don't. She's in labour. Leave, or I'll call security." "Claire, please. I know I messed up, but I want to be involved. I'll leave Meredith. We can be together." Claire laughed bitterly through her pain. "Together? You think I want to be with someone who cheated on his wife, who cheated with me? We're both terrible people, James. But this baby doesn't deserve to pay for our mistakes." Security arrived, escorting James out, but I could see his words had affected Claire. Her contractions seemed more painful, her breathing more panicked. "Claire, focus on me," I said, getting in her face. "Remember when we were 22 and you said you'd name your first son Alexander after Alexander the Great? You said he'd conquer the world with kindness." She laughed, sobbed. "Marcus ruined that name. His grandfather Alexander was apparently a railroad baron who destroyed communities for profit. Even the family legacy is built on cruelty." 3 hours into labour, Catherine arrived with a bag of Claire's things from the party. "I thought you might need these," she said quietly, "and I wanted you to know I'm testifying in your divorce. I've already called my lawyer. I'll provide every piece of evidence about Marcus's deception." "Why?" Claire asked between contractions. "He's your brother. Because what he did was unforgivable, and because this baby deserves better than to be born into lies and revenge." Eleanor appeared next, having followed Catherine. "I've cut Marcus off," she announced without preamble. "Financially, familially, completely. The trust fund, the family business connections, all of it. He's on his own." "Eleanor, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. I failed you, Claire. I saw the signs of his narcissism, his cruelty, and I made excuses. I thought marriage would mature him. Instead, he destroyed a good woman." The contractions were almost constant now. Dr. Hoffman checked Claire again. "You're ready. It's time to push." What followed was the most intense hour of my life. Claire pushed with determination that reminded me why I'd loved her for 15 years. She was warrior fierce, even broken-hearted and betrayed. "I can see the head," Dr. Hoffman announced. "One more big push." Claire bore down, screaming, and suddenly a cry filled the room. Not Claire's, but the high, indignant wail of a newborn. "It's a boy!" Dr. Hoffman said, placing the baby on Claire's chest. Claire looked down at her son, and everything else fell away. The betrayal, the humiliation, the destroyed relationships. There was just her and this tiny person who needed her. "He's perfect," she whispered, tears streaming. "He's absolutely perfect." The baby had a shock of dark hair like James, but Claire's nose and chin. He was indeed perfect, unmarred by the circumstances of his conception and birth. "What will you name him?" I asked gently. Claire was quiet for a long moment, studying her son's face. "Noah," she finally said. "It means rest and comfort." After the storm, while Claire was moved to recovery, I stepped out to update everyone. The waiting room was tense. Meredith was there, mascara streaked but composed. Marcus had arrived and was arguing with security. James sat in a corner, head in his hands. "It's a boy," I announced. "Mum and baby are healthy." "I want to see him," Marcus demanded. "I'm still legally her husband." "You have no claim to this child," Meredith said coldly. "We all heard your confession. You knew it wasn't yours and planned to humiliate her with that fact. And your husband is the actual father, so maybe you should shut up," Marcus shot back. "Ex-husband," Meredith corrected. I've already called my lawyer, and unlike Claire, I knew exactly what kind of man I married. I just hoped he'd change. James looked up hopefully at this, but Meredith shut him down with a look. Don't. The divorce will be swift and brutal. You can figure out custody and child support with Claire separately. The next days were a whirlwind. Claire stayed in the hospital for 3 days, and I practically lived there with her. The viral video of the baby shower had made her locally famous, with opinions split between those who thought she was a victim and those who judged her for the affair. Marcus tried to visit once, bringing the divorce papers he'd prepared months ago. Claire signed them without reading. "Aren't you going to fight for anything?" he asked, seemingly frustrated that his grand plan had been derailed. "I have my son. I have my friends. I have my integrity damaged as it is. That's more than you'll ever have." He left and never came back. James was more persistent, visiting daily, bringing flowers and gifts. Claire allowed supervised visits with Noah, but nothing more. "I need to figure out who I am first," she told him. "I've been defined by relationships my whole life. Someone's girlfriend, someone's wife, someone's mistress. I need to just be Claire for a while." 1 year later, I sat in Claire's apartment, watching Noah take his first wobbling steps. Claire had transformed in 12 months. The desperate woman seeking validation through marriage had evolved into a fierce single mother and successful entrepreneur. She'd started a blog about surviving public humiliation and single motherhood that had exploded into a book deal and speaking engagements. From Shower to Power became a bestseller, helping thousands of women dealing with betrayal and public shame. "Can you believe he's walking already?" Claire said, catching Noah as he toppled forward. "James says he's advanced for his age." James had become a devoted father, seeing Noah 3 times a week. He'd moved to a small apartment after Meredith took the house in the divorce. His relationship with Claire was cordial but distant. He'd asked her out several times, but she'd refused. "I can't build something healthy on a foundation of betrayal," she'd explained to me. "Maybe if we'd met differently, but we didn't." Meredith and I had slowly rebuilt our relationship. She'd forgiven me for exposing James publicly, understanding I was protecting Claire. She was dating someone new, a widower she'd met in her divorce support group, and seemed genuinely happy. The affair was almost a relief, she'd told me recently. It gave me an excuse to leave a marriage that had been dead for years. Marcus had disappeared from the social scene entirely. His business had crumbled after the scandal, his reputation destroyed by his own planned cruelty backfiring. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state, trying to start over where nobody knew his story. Eleanor and Catherine had become unexpected fixtures in Claire and Noah's life. Eleanor, freed from protecting Marcus, had revealed herself to be warm and loving, the grandmother Claire had never had. Catherine was Noah's favourite aunt, spoiling him with toys and babysitting whenever Claire needed. "I spent so many years enabling Marcus's worst traits," Eleanor had said. "Taking care of Noah feels like redemption." Daniel and I had grown stronger through the ordeal. Watching him protect Claire, seeing his integrity in action, reminded me why I'd married him. "You did the right thing," he told me regularly. "It was messy and painful, but imagine if Marcus's plan had succeeded. Imagine Claire finding out in the delivery room, exhausted and vulnerable." The baby shower gifts, abandoned in the chaos, had been quietly delivered to Claire's apartment later. She'd kept them all, even the family heirloom rattle from Eleanor, though she'd had it engraved with Noah instead of Alexander. Claire's journey to single motherhood had been public and painful, but she'd emerged stronger. She spoke at women's conferences about resilience, about rebuilding after public humiliation, about choosing yourself when everyone else fails you. "The shower was meant to celebrate my baby," she said in one speech I attended. "Instead, it became the death of my old life. But from those ashes, I found strength I never knew I had. I learned that family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about who shows up when your world falls apart." She looked at me when she said that, and I teared up, remembering holding her hand through labour, through the custody hearings, through the long nights when Noah wouldn't sleep. and she questioned every decision. The viral video had been edited into a documentary by a filmmaker fascinated with modern betrayal and social media justice. Claire had participated, wanting to control her narrative. The film exposed a baby shower betrayal, had won several independent film awards. "It's surreal," Claire said, watching herself on screen, reliving the worst day of her life. "But if it helps one woman recognize deception or leave a toxic relationship, it's worth it." James had learned hard lessons too. He'd gone to therapy, confronting his patterns of selfish behavior. He was a good father to Noah present, and engaged in ways he'd never been in his marriage. "I destroyed everything for one night of feeling wanted," he'd told me during one of Noah's handoffs. "But Noah's the one good thing that came from my mistakes. I won't fail him like I failed everyone else." The baby shower venue had offered Claire a free anniversary party for Noah's first birthday, trying to capitalize on the publicity. She'd declined, choosing instead a small gathering at her apartment with only the people who'd stood by her. As I watched Noah play, surrounded by people who truly loved him, I thought about that horrible day at the baby shower. The decorations falling, the shocked faces, the ugly truths exposed for everyone to see. It had been a nightmare in the moment, but sometimes nightmares wake us up to reality. Claire had been living in a fantasy with Marcus, ignoring red flags and accepting crumbs of affection. The affair with James had been a symptom of a diseased marriage, not the cause. "Joe," Claire said suddenly, "I never properly thanked you." "For what?" "For saving me. If you hadn't exposed everything, I'd be trapped in that marriage still. Or worse, ambushed at the hospital like Marcus planned. You risked our friendship to protect me. I'd do it again in a heartbeat." "I know, that's what real love looks like. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but standing up for someone even when it's messy and complicated." Noah toddled over to me, arms raised to be picked up. As I lifted him, he patted my cheek with his chubby hand and babbled something that sounded like Jojo. His first word was "Mama," Claire said proudly. "But Jojo is definitely second." Looking at this bright, happy child, who could have been born into manipulation and cruelty, I knew every hard decision had been worth it. The baby shower had been destroyed, but in its ruins, we'd built something real. A chosen family bonded not by lies or obligation, but by truth and genuine love. That's my story, the story of a baby shower that became an exposé, a celebration that became a revelation. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is reveal the truth, even when it hurts, because lies, no matter how comfortable, always eventually suffocate. Only truth, painful as it might be, sets us free. Thank you for listening to this story. Have you ever had to expose a painful truth to save someone you love? How do you balance loyalty with honesty? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about choosing truth over comfort. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that surviving public betrayal is possible. That strength can come from the most unexpected places. Remember, real friends don't let you live in dangerous lies, even when the truth might end everything. Sometimes destruction is necessary for reconstruction. Take care of yourselves, and never apologize for protecting those you love, even from themselves.